We've got agonising transformations. Zombie fight best friends.
Hey, David! Put that down.
The world's most unwelcoming pub.
Jack, we better go.
And we've even got Nazi werewolves.
Yeah, it really is the greatest. I was going to say zombie film, man. It really is the greatest werewolf film ever, because you say things are subjective and everyone's got entitled to their own opinion. But if you don't think this film is the greatest werewolf film ever, your opinion's wrong, scientifically wrong.
Absolutely.
Some things are shit, okay, and some things are awesome. I love this movie. I would say the plot is pretty straightforward, but it's not. It's not just a guy gets bitten by a werewolf and he's going to turn in the next full moon. There's so many layers to this film. You've got, like you said, zombified best friends, where because his friend was killed by the werewolf, he's rotting, like he's like a ghost who visits him, and every single victim he sees them as ghosts. And as time goes by, they're getting more rotten and rotten. And then you've got these mental dream sequences that arguably are the most frightening part of it. It's mental.
Oh, 100%. And what's great about those dream sequences is mainly the Nazi soldiers,
Yes.
the werewolves, because you just cut from a seemingly normal scene to him in his house with his family, and then the door gets kicked through, and you're like, what the hell is going on? It's nuts. That's such a mad bit. That's such a mad bit.
If you notice, like, the Muppets are on TV, and with Miss Piggy, and Frank Oz, who voices Miss Piggy and Yoda, he's one of the doctors that comes in.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether him and sort of John Landis are pals or something, but it's like one of those like old school Easter eggs.
100%.
He's just like, because the guy's, I think he's the only one still alive that does the Muppets, and he still does Yoda. But the bit with used to freak me out of the dream sequence was the scene where he's in the bed in the woods. There's a lot of dreams where he's running naked in the woods, and there's a bed. I may have mentioned it in a previous video, but his eyes are shut, and when he opens them, I think he's got yellow eyes, teeth. And when I was a kid, I had to look away. That was the bit that
of course.
freaked me out the most.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's give a little intro to the people who haven't seen the film and don't know what we're talking about. We've kind of jumped straight into this one.
Yes.
It's basically about two American best friends, Jack and David, and they're on a 3-month Euro trip, and they end up in England, Wales, really. I'll give a shout out to that, because American Werewolf in London is ours. The Moors was filmed in Wales, and they find themselves in the back country in England. And unfortunately, they run into a lycanthrope, as they call it in the film, a 4-legged beast from hell. And it's as basic as his friend Jack, he gets eaten by the werewolf, David gets attacked, and then he's taken to a hospital in London where he is now carrying this disease, this werewolf disease. And that's basically where the film starts. But if we talk about that opening, Jenks, that opening on the moors, is probably one of the scariest and greatest put together scenes ever. And it's the best part of the film, because when I was a kid, I didn't really get on with it, because it's not a horror film, really. It's so much more than that. It's not something, if you're into, as a kid anyway, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all these big slasher movies, there's something a bit more in this film. And if you're looking for a big thrilling werewolf movie, go watch The Howling. But this one is so much more. But as a kid, this opening scene on the moors, when they're walking and you've got the mist and the rain and the noise of the werewolf, you can't see it, but you can hear it, and you can kind of hear about where it is. It is just pure nightmare fuel, and it's just one of the best openings ever made. And obviously, you've got the slaughtered lamb as well. Like we said, the most unwelcoming pub ever. It's my first memory. I know we were actually speaking about this, Jenks, about where that originated. You walk into a bar and everyone stops and turns around. If there's any music on, it stops. Everyone stops dead and stares. And we were talking about it the other day, and in my memory, this was the first movie to do it. But obviously, like you said, it goes all the way back to the Western times.
Yes.
But for me, this is where it became iconic,
Yeah, I with the bit with the moors when they're walking. Every time you sort of say if you go for a walk and it's quite dark, and you can imagine like what it must be like to lose track of the path, and
Yes.
they've just veered off, and the fear, but because they're together, they're kind of like singing along. Come on, don't worry about it. Just keep walking. Just keep walking. So you
Cracking
kind of
jokes.
lose. Yeah, you kind of lose the fear of being alone because you're together, but it's still they're holding on to each other basically. And when the shit is the fan, it's not. This film has got so many levels. It's got some of the goriest violence, especially in the first attack when his friend is ripped to shreds. It is horrifying.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
The noises
and
he makes.
oh my god, it's horrible. It's like one of the worst deaths you could get. John Landis wrote this movie, and
When he
it
was
is
19 years old, Jenks.
yeah, he wrote, and nobody wanted it, and it was on a
Yeah.
shelf for years. It's really bonkers. It's so many different levels to it. I think that's why it is the best, because perhaps there aren't many werewolf films that are even close to this. Because if you maybe stick to the basics of a guy getting bitten, maybe it's not enough, because he's got so many different levels to this that it boosts it up, you know. The bit that tickles me, if you compare Britain now to back then in the 80s or early 80s,
Oh, hello.
was the
Everyone's
fact
extra English.
was the fact that he's got his own hospital room, like a private room, and you're thinking, no, you'd be still in the ambulance waiting to get a bed, you know,
100%. Yeah, yeah.
and you definitely can't go home and shag the nurse. I live with her.
Do you know she's quite an odd character. Do you know that bit where he first goes back to her house and they're
Yeah.
just standing in the bedroom and she goes, I find you very attractive, but very sad. I've had 7 lovers in my life, 3 of those one night stands. I don't really know what I'm getting with this. Let's go have a shag in the shower. Do you know what I
Yes,
mean?
I
It's
know.
such an odd scene, like you just
I
it just
know.
comes out of nowhere.
I
I've
know.
had 7 lovers.
I've had 7 lovers in my life, 3 of which were one-night stands.
Do you know, we can't talk about American Werewolf in London without talking about that awesome transformation scene.
Oh, I know, yeah.
That is one of the best moments in horror because um, I'm not saying there's no place for CGI. I'm not saying I'm not a CGI snob or anything like that, but it's not so much. It's not fun to see a CGI transformation when someone it just plops into life like a and just changes form like a
Yeah, of course.
shapeshifter in all these movies. This this transformation is agonizing, and it's meant to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
agonizing, especially when his torso is growing and you know the little trickery of the camera. But it is incredible. It's mind
Hey,
blowing, you know.
trickery of the legend Rick Baker. All
Yes,
done in real time. The guy's an absolute wizard.
yeah, he had an
All
Oscar for it as well.
Yes, all the movements, everything, it's all there in real time. And he was actually pissed off with it because he spent months and months and months prepping this scene and everything was shown in seconds, quick clips. But these hand extensions in the face, the hair, everything, it took him months to prepare and then it's done in
Yeah,
seconds, like on film anyway. They were filming it for flipping days. But
yeah,
what's more amazing is that like the stuff he brings to the table in this film, stuff that hadn't been done before, like the hair, like he pushed the hair into this latex thing, and then he pushed it through, and then they shot it in reverse then,
yeah.
so it comes through, and with the hair. They covered him in hair first and then slowly got rid of the hair and again put it in reverse so it looks like the hair's growing. It would be easier to do it that way. Like the guy's an absolute genius and that is by far one of the greatest pieces of practical effects I've ever seen because John Landis himself has said you watch the old Wolfman and when he transforms he's just sitting on a chair normal and he's just growing hair and he's like no way this would be agonizing, your whole body is transforming,
Yeah.
and it is, you can
The
feel it, and that
spine.
bit, yeah,
Yeah.
that bit where he turns to look at us and puts his arm up, it's just so
Yeah.
potent, it's crazy.
Did Rick I know John Landis did Michael Jackson's Thriller. Did Rick Baker do all the makeup as well for that? I wonder.
I think so, yeah. I think he
Would have
might have.
thought
I
so.
know they've been working together since was it Schlock? his Bigfoot movie. They were both
Yeah.
like 19 and 20 years old, and they've kind of grown up together.
Isn't it strange how like John Landis makes one of the best comedies ever, Trading Places and Coming to America, and he's made potentially the best horror film ever as well, not just the werewolf
Yeah, of
movie.
course. It's
He's
a masterpiece.
he's amazing.
There's so much dialogue in this film as well, right? The carry. And what I love about this one is it doesn't rely just on the gore or just on the werewolf. It's got a fantastic script, great characters. It's got some great dialogue. Some of my favorite moments from this film are the dialogue heavy moments, like when Dr. Hirsch is at his desk and the two sergeants come in, the two detectives, and he asks him, he goes, would you guys like a cup of tea? And the older detective, he's like, no, I'm okay. And then the young tough one, he's like, yes. And the look he gives him. It's so good. He's just a buffoon.
Yeah.
Some tea. Oh, thank you.
I'd like some tea, please. Maybe not, no thanks. Maybe later.
My favorite person is Brian Glover, the bald guy who's in like Alien 3 and stuff, the Yorkshire guy, and he's like by the gate, and the doctor is asking questions to the other guy, and he's like, "That's enough, that's enough."
Hey, you. That's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, because they're on about the Alamo with John Wayne. And
Remember the Alamo.
And Jack says, it was a bloody film. Bloody awful.
I know. I think people growing up in America probably just assumed that all of Britain was just like the Slaughtered Lamb. Every pub you go into would be the same.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and how iconic is that? The Slaughtered Lamb. It's such an iconic sign, such an iconic name. It couldn't have been more perfect for the movie.
Yeah, I love it. Do you know as well with so one of my favorite scenes in it is the subway scene where the guy is getting chased by the wolf. You don't see the wolf at all, which is great for budget and tension. But when there's the moment where the camera pans up and you can just see the shadow and the wolf walking slowly, almost out of shot. And as a kid, I don't even remember seeing the wolf. I don't know whether my TV was so shit you couldn't see it, but it's so off the screen, And I remember later thinking, oh, has that wolf always been there? And it's just horrible the way it's creeping, just like a tiger or something, but it's horrifying. I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, of course. If I was to pick my favorite scene, I'd have to say outside of the Moors scene, because that's the obvious choice. It's just so damn good. But it has to be the Piccadilly Circus ending. It is just absolute chaos because the film doesn't give you that much to go on throughout, and then it just pays off with that finale. It's like John Landis has gone, all right, I'll give you something, and you've got heads being torn off, people flying out of bus windows, people getting run over. It's just absolutely chaotic. And again, they just didn't have the time or money to close down Piccadilly, so they were just shooting these in quick increments, just quick. Right, get this crash done quick, and then everything goes back to normal.
Yeah,
and everybody's just standing around seeing all this stuff happen. Like
it's like a really violent version of the opening of Superman 3 when they go, all these things are happening quick. Do you know what I love about this film? Because if you notice, the 70s was very much a time for bleak endings, bleak characters, bleak stories. And I know this was made in 81, but I think it was kind of the arse end of the 70s vibe. I think the 80s hadn't quite got so slushy with family stuff like E.T. and Ghostbusters. Not that I don't love those films, but obviously the tide had turned. So you've got this sort of era of time, you didn't really mind having these horrible bleak endings. I mean, we're used to it now, bleak endings, part and parcel. But this is quite horrible. There's no way around it. He's got to die to stop killing people, to save his friends in limbo.
Yeah, because every time I watch it, and I do the same with so many movies, you know what's going to happen, but when you watch it again, you're there in the moment again, even though you know what's going to happen, and you always try and give yourself that hope. And when Alex is walking down that alleyway, and you think for a slight moment he might go, oh, do you know what? I'm all right. But no, he goes for it and gets shot down.
Yeah.
But there's always a glimmer of hope.
So wrapping it up, I would say to anybody who hasn't seen it, we may have spoiled a lot of it, but I don't think it matters. It's such an old film. It's still worth watching. Or you need to convince people to watch it if you've got a friend that hasn't seen it, because it still stands up today, and I absolutely love it. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, it is one of the greatest movies ever made. It is the best werewolf movie ever made. And
Yes.
I just think it's a film that's not going to be forgotten anytime soon.
No, not at all. Right, if you like classic reviews, modern reviews, anything to do with horror, hit that subscribe button, and we catch you on the next one. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Keep off the moors. Stick to the roads. The best of luck.
Thanks again.